Ever wondered what happens when a legend's bright star begins to fade? That question lingers around Roy Rogers, widely known as the King of the Cowboys, who once delighted crowds at his cherished museum, a place filled with sparkling saddles, captivating memorabilia, and countless stories of Western glory. Today, those doors stand closed, and those irreplaceable pieces of Americana are scattered among private collectors. Even if you never had the chance to set foot in the Roy Rogers Museum, his name might still ignite memories of silver screen heroics and gentle cowboy ballads. He was no ordinary entertainer. Roy rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most recognized faces of Western pop culture. For a time, he seemed unstoppable, beloved by families nationwide. Then, in a testament to how quickly the world can move on, the museum that celebrated his life shuttered its doors, leaving fans wondering how such an icon slipped from the public's view. The journey that led Roy Rogers to cultural prominence began when he was Leonard Franklin Sly, born on November 5, 1911, in Cincinnati, Ohio. His father, Andy, dreamt of exchanging city life for a simpler existence. Determined to escape mundane factory work, he built a houseboat from salvaged wood, launching his family on a river-bound quest for greater freedom. Floating along the Ohio River, young Len experienced nature in an unfiltered way, learning to value wide-open spaces long before Hollywood thrust him into the spotlight. Eventually, the Slys tried farming in Duck Run, but money was always tight. Andy took a shoe factory job to keep food on the table, sometimes bringing home surprise gifts like a horse for his son, stirring up a lifelong passion for riding. Rural weekends provided entertainment in the form of square dances and yodeling sessions, where Len discovered he had a voice that charmed neighbors. Though he briefly attended high school, he left after 2 years to help support his family, choosing practical responsibility over the traditional academic route. Difficult economic realities then guided the Slys to California, where Len picked fruit and slept in rough labor camp conditions that could have come straight from a John Steinbeck novel. Even so, he nurtured his musical interests, auditioning for a local radio show called Midnight Frolic at the urging of his sister Mary. This leap led him to join the Rocky Mountaineers, a Los Angeles-based group. The lineup changed often, but Len's talent was unmistakable. He and two fellow singers, Bob Nolan and Tim Spencer, eventually formed a tight-knit trio known for their harmonies. When they added fiddler Hugh Farr, an announcer renamed them the Sons of the Pioneers. Suddenly, their Western ballads, like Tumbling Tumbleweeds and Cool Water, were heard on syndicated radio broadcasts across the country. Leonard's earnest charm, along with the group's musical precision, helped them rise to national fame. It wasn't long before Hollywood scouts noticed Leonard Sly. Gene Autry had popularized the singing cowboy image, and film studios were eager to find new faces if a top star's contract demands got too high. Republic Pictures saw potential in Len and decided to transform him into Roy Rogers, allegedly choosing his last name in homage to the beloved Will Rogers. Whether it was perfect timing or an uncanny gift for showmanship, Roy found himself starring in Under Western Stars. Almost overnight, he was heralded as a fresh rival to Gene Autry, generating an excited debate among fans over which singer best captured the cowboy spirit. Children adored Roy's wholesome persona, while adults appreciated the gentle humor and decency he brought to the screen. Unlike many actors of his time, Roy insisted on a groundbreaking clause in his contract that granted him the merchandising rights to his name, voice, and likeness. That gave him a level of control and profit few Hollywood stars enjoyed. Soon, Roy Rogers' products filled store shelves: action figures, lunchboxes, comic books, and toy holsters. Thanks to these ventures, he became a household name, extending far beyond movie theaters. He also maintained close ties to the Sons of the Pioneers. Though rumors circulated that the group felt overshadowed by Roy's fame, no major conflicts ever spilled into the public arena. Roy typically kept private matters behind closed doors, bolstering his image as a drama-free, good-hearted cowboy who valued loyalty as much as any frontier hero would. Off-screen, he was equally admired for his personal life. He and Dale Evans, his wife and frequent co-star, embodied the ideals of a family brand. Together they adopted children, advocated for charitable causes, and even joined religious organizations in Hollywood. Dale wrote the now classic theme song, Happy Trails, which the couple sang at the end of their TV programs. Critics sometimes accuse them of cultivating a squeaky clean image too perfect to be real, but friends insisted that their generosity was genuine. They opened their home to children in need, made hospital visits, and wove their faith into daily life. The public's affection for Roy and Dale blossomed, with fans drawn to their warmth and old-fashioned values. At the height of his success, Roy decided to establish a museum in California dedicated to his life and career. It offered visitors a treasure trove of costumes, sparkling saddles, and personal keepsakes. Eventually, it relocated to Victorville and later Branson, Missouri. Fans visiting these locations could see movie posters, comic book art, and impressive displays of Western apparel. The most talked about exhibit featured Trigger, Roy's beloved Palomino horse, preserved through taxidermy. Reactions varied. Some considered it a testament to Roy's devotion, while others found it unsettling. Nonetheless, it became a staple attraction that drew in families who wanted to see Trigger up close. For many years, this museum thrived as a gathering spot for admirers of the King of the Cowboys. Employees recalled days when lines wrapped around the building, and children wearing cowboy hats giggled with excitement while glimpsing Roy's flashy outfits and guitars. Roy's popularity seemed unshakable, reinforced by charity appearances and intermittent reunions with the sons of the pioneers. Yet cultural tastes shifted over time, and the Western craze began losing ground to new genres of music, television, and film. Younger generations bonded with their own idols, so attendance at the Roy Rogers Museum gradually declined. Even moving to Branson, a destination known for family-friendly live shows and nostalgia, couldn't stem the tide. By the 1990s, Roy's health problems put additional stress on the family. Despite everything, he stayed realistic and reportedly told them not to keep the museum open at all costs. Preserving his brand was important, but not if it meant going bankrupt. After Roy passed away in 1998, attempts were made to reinvigorate the museum with updated exhibits and promotions. Unfortunately, operating costs, from maintenance to insurance for rare items, became overwhelming. Visitor numbers kept falling and financial strain took its toll. By 2009, Roy's children decided it was time to close the museum, explaining that this heartbreaking move was in line with their father's wishes. Once the closure was announced, fan communities expressed shock and sadness. Memories poured out of family road trips and summertime visits that had once defined people's childhood vacations. Christie's eventually facilitated an auction, drawing collectors and curious onlookers hoping to claim a piece of Western history. Items such as Roy's first guitar and Dale's ornate outfits fetched prices well beyond initial estimates, reflecting the continued reverence for the Roy Rogers legacy. The most poignant bidding war involved Trigger. Ultimately, Patrick Gotch of RFD-TV purchased the horse and another cherished artifact, Bullet the dog, preserving them for public display. Fans thanked him profusely, relieved that these iconic figures wouldn't vanish into obscurity. The auctions marked the end of an era, but they also underscored the affection people still felt for Roy. Observers noted that, in the final moments of bidding, onlookers sang "Happy Trails," evoking the spirit of those old TV broadcasts. Parting with these artifacts was emotionally wrenching for Roy's children. They had grown up around his costumes, boots, and saddles, all of which carried personal significance. Nonetheless, they took some solace in the idea that new stewards of the items would treasure them just as deeply. If letting go meant preserving the family's financial stability, it seemed like the only course of action. In the aftermath, many fans wondered why the museum hadn't pivoted to a more modern, interactive format or partnered with other Western-themed attractions. Speculation about possible family conflicts circulated, but there was scant evidence that anyone had acted with ill intent. More likely, it was the confluence of rising costs, an aging fan base, and diminishing popular interest in mid-century cowboys. Some observers argued that streaming services might help revitalize old Western shows, sparking renewed fascination among younger viewers. If that has happened, it's been a slow trickle rather than a massive wave. Yet even small spikes in attention keep Roy's name in circulation. Archival footage and film festivals sometimes shine a spotlight on his accomplishments, urging newcomers to appreciate a star whose kindly demeanor once dominated matinee screens. The Roy Rogers brand persists in unexpected corners. A restaurant chain bearing his name still exists in certain regions, serving up fast food items that often surprise patrons who've never heard of the famous cowboy. Meanwhile, Roy's descendants maintain a degree of public engagement. His son Dusty performed tributes and shared anecdotes about growing up with the king of the cowboys, telling stories about how, even at home, Roy exuded the same gentle nature that viewers saw on screen. Fans who attend conventions or fan gatherings hear these details and often walk away with a deeper appreciation for Roy's authenticity. Some controversies did arise behind the scenes, with rumors of disagreements over whether an extensive marketing push might have rescued the museum. Yet the broader truth remains that icons from past decades can struggle to stay relevant once society moves on to fresh content. Roy understood this, cautioning his family not to sacrifice too much for sentimentality's sake. Though the museum's closing was a blow to nostalgic fans, the Rogers family ultimately honored his guidance. History is peppered with examples of famous names who lost everything in the quest to keep a public shrine alive. Roy, by contrast, believed in realism. Fans still debate whether more could have been done, but the final decision was made with the best intentions in mind. Over time, new generations occasionally discover Roy Rogers through clips online or references in pop culture discussions of classic Western cinema. They might stumble on a black and white musical number featuring his distinctive yodel, leading them to dig deeper into who he was and why he mattered to a previous era. This modest but steady curiosity ensures that Roy's star never completely dims, even if it doesn't shine as brightly as before. Whether in homemade tributes on social media or curated retrospectives at film conventions, the cowboy's ethos endures: faith, honor, kindness, and a sense of old-fashioned fun. For longtime supporters, the museum's closure was a tough pill to swallow. They had hoped the collection would remain intact for future generations, a lasting sanctuary of all things Roy. Instead, those items are now dispersed, living in private homes and specialized exhibits. Yet this scattering of memorabilia might preserve his legacy in a more personal way. Each collector, museum, or television studio that acquires a piece of Roy Rogers' history becomes an unofficial curator, responsible for telling stories about his life and times. Sometimes this can spark new interest, as friends and family of those collectors learn about Roy through these artifacts. In that sense, the end of a formal museum could be seen as the beginning of a more decentralized tribute, carried by devoted fans everywhere. Ultimately, it's impossible to measure Roy's impact by a single building or collection of objects. His legacy spans decades of film, radio, television, music, and charity work. The man who grew up yodeling on a farm boat along the Ohio River found himself co-starring with Dale Evans in Hollywood productions that captured the hearts of millions. He negotiated unheard-of contract terms that reshaped the way Hollywood handled merchandising. He donated time to churches and children's organizations, showing that stardom didn't have to mean a life devoid of generosity or personal convictions. Now, as Western culture holds a smaller place in mainstream media, Roy Rogers remains an emblem of a certain American ideal, where courage meets kindness and faith. Those who recall his heyday smile at the memory of a hero in a white hat, leading them through cinematic escapades. Those who discover him anew might be taken by the calm, family-friendly aura that stands in stark contrast to today's high-octane entertainment. No matter which generation you belong to, there's a quiet, enduring charm to the king of the Cowboys. In the end, Roy's museum is gone, but his story persists in fragments scattered across countless homes, online archives, restaurants bearing his name, and in the recollections of anyone who sang along to Happy Trails. Though it's natural to mourn the museum's passing, we might also see it as an invitation to keep Roy's spirit alive in everyday life, not confined behind glass displays. Perhaps his guiding lesson is that legends don't always have to be preserved in one place. They can roam free in the collective imagination, awaiting rediscovery by a curious soul who wonders about old Hollywood tales of moral conviction and melody. Some might call that an even more fitting tribute. Roy once soared across movie screens on Trigger's back, dazzling crowds with songs and stories of frontier gallantry. Generations later, scattered souvenirs and digital archives ensure his kindness, optimism, and irrepressible cowboy charm continue to resonate. If the museum's closure teaches us anything, it's that a legacy can remain potent without a physical shrine. Roy himself might have approved, seeing it as a new way for fans to carry the cowboy torch forward, each in their own fashion. After all, a legend endures as long as there's one more person left who cares enough to keep it alive. When we look at Roy Rogers, we're reminded that even under the bright lights of stardom, it's possible to remain grounded, generous, and faithful to the values that truly matter. Yet there's another angle to consider: the changes in how fans experience nostalgia today. While the museum once provided a central location to immerse oneself in Roy's world, modern audiences often piece together their nostalgia through digital platforms. They watch clips on streaming services, engage in online forums, or collect physical memorabilia from secondary markets. In this evolving landscape, the Roy Rogers brand stands as a testament to resilience, adapting from one generation to the next. Family members and die-hard enthusiasts continue to champion his name, ensuring that newcomers can still discover why he once drew such passionate devotion. This sense of grassroots preservation may ultimately have a broader reach than a single building, especially in an era where social media can resurrect almost any cultural icon with just a few clicks. Looking at the grand sweep of Roy's career from a shy Ohio farm boy to a Hollywood headliner illustrates how far determination and a touch of fate can take someone. He never pretended to be perfect. Instead, he embraced a persona that balanced showmanship with down-to-earth sincerity, an approach that resonates long after the final reel has played. By keeping his memory alive in countless homes, both digital and physical, fans create an ever-expanding tapestry of stories, pictures, and discussions. Though the museum's shutters came down, the image of Roy tipping his cowboy hat remains as strong as ever, a gentle reminder that behind every well-preserved relic lies a deeper human story worth carrying forward. After all, the king of the Cowboys didn't ride off into the sunset alone. He left behind a legacy of hope and kindness that still flickers in those who take a moment to remember his name. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.